Good morning and welcome to today's Solver Asia Pacific BI360 webinar. Today one of our partners will be presenting on a self-service business intelligence software. From Solver Asia Pacific for today's webinar, we have Mike Kimbrough presenting. Mike has 20 plus years of business intelligence, budgeting and forecasting, data warehouse and enterprise resource planning experience. Mike is responsible for the development of the overall company strategy for Solver Asia Pacific. If you have any questions during the webinar, please post them in the questions box. I will monitor these during the webinar. As we have a variety of people listening in on this webinar, we have decided that any questions asked will be answered through email after the conclusion of the webinar. With all that said, I will now pass you on to Mike, who will begin the webinar. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So on the agenda today, we have a lot to cover in an hour. I'm going to try to provide as much information about our product and cover as many of the areas that I possibly can. Obviously, I will be flying through a lot of this information, but again, the purpose of today's session is to really give you a flavor of the products, and if there's further questions or interest, we're happy to dive into deeper details at a later date. So on the agenda today, I'm gonna briefly talk with you a little bit about the company. I'm gonna fly through that. I will spend a bit of time on the architecture because that's going to be quite important as we go through today's session. That's going to help you understand how the different components within BI360 interact. It's not indicative of all of our products. It's really going to be the foundation of what we're talking about today, and that's going to be helpful for everyone. Then I'm going to get into the demonstration and cover formatted reporting. So we have a Excel add-in reporting tool. I'm going to actually show you both the Excel side of things and then what happens if I build a report in Excel and I want to send it out to the web. So we have both options available, so you can deploy reports to your end users in either format, and I'll show you both today. I'm going to start with talking with you about live reporting off a NAV. So that's really the ERP side of things, so how we get to all the data within inside a NAV, how we build drag and drop, easy to build type of reports. Then I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to show you transition from ERP reporting to enterprise-wide reporting using our data warehouse, and I'll explain more of that in the architecture. I'm just going to walk through, give you a few examples. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of report examples, so I'm going to try to make the session as much as I can, as powerful as I can, and address the things I think that will be of interest to you. Then I will probably build a report for you if time allows, so that's the plan at least. And then I'm going to just highlight on consolidations, because I'm sure a lot of people, especially if you're running multiple businesses, you're going to have consolidation questions. So I'll probably touch a little bit on that. Lastly, I will be showing you spending time in budgeting and forecasting. I'm most likely going to do that in the web portal because I'll transition over into the web portal. And I will touch a little bit on the dashboard side and our ad hoc query tool as well. So that's the agenda for today. So just a quick bit about Solver. So we have been in business now for over 20 years providing business intelligence solutions, specifically started working with the Microsoft solution stack. We were a custom provider, so we would build custom data warehouses, custom budgeting and reporting solutions. And we found fairly early on that we were kind of repeating the same process for all of our customers, and decided that we would transition our business into building products for the mainstream. So over our 20 years, we've built 3 different products. The first product we built was a product called Enterprise Reporting that was acquired by Microsoft. That product ran for about 13 years. So it was quite successful, very powerful reporting, consolidation, and budgeting tool. The second product we built was our first add-in, Excel add-in. That product was called Excel Reporter. That tool was acquired by SAP. And the product that you're going to see today is called BI360. BI360 is by far the most successful product that we've ever built in terms of customer acquisitions, and the depth and breadth of the solution. We have a lot to offer that we didn't have in the previous two products. More on this is we can forward these slides over to you, and you can review these at a later date. That's a little bit about Solver as a company. The reason I'll pull this up just quickly to talk with you about it is that this is a small sampling of customers and the types of industries that our customers are in. But I want to point out to everybody on the call, it doesn't really matter to us what industry you're in. We don't work with one industry any better than we do the other. We don't work with healthcare, for example, any better than we would with professional sports teams or media and entertainment. It's really, for us, it's about can we get to the data, and I'm going to show you how we do that today, and can we dream it up and design it within the tool when we're building our reports and our dashboards. So this is the architecture overview, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this so everybody understands this. Again, this is not indicative of our complete product offering. This is a slide designed to be quite simple and so everybody can understand it, and it's really going to focus on the foundation of our product and kind of the main things that we'll be talking about today. So everything starts with our Excel report writing tool here, and the first thing that I want to tell everybody, and this is something to kind of get your mind thinking about our product, is that at no time, whether we're talking about reporting or we're talking about budgeting, do we ever store data inside of Excel. So that's one of the main differences. You don't lose any of the functionality that you have with Excel, but we don't store data in Excel. So we either need a place to pull data from, or we need a place to push data to, or both. So what you'll see here is you'll see a little dotted line that's going into Dynamics. This is Dynamics NAV. And what that's indicating, that dotted line is indicating, is this is a live integration. So I can get to, within Dynamics NAV, I can get to all of the modules that you'll have and all of the data that you have, not just at the ledger level, but at general ledger level, but at the sub-ledger level as well. If you have third-party products or you have custom fields inside of NAV, no problem. Our tool comes with an easy-to-configure integration tool. That way, you're able to add those fields that you want to see for the purpose of reporting. So quite easy to work with. I can virtually get to anything inside of Dynamics NAV. So great. So that's really where we're going to talk about ERP reporting today. That's where we're going to start. But what if you're a company that has multiple companies, maybe multiple ERPs, you've got an external CRM or payroll system, or a database out there, or whatever it might be that you'd like to be able to include for the purpose of reporting. You don't want to try to bring all of that stuff obviously into your ERP. So how do you really transition from an ERP reporting solution into a enterprise-wide solution, reporting solution? And the way that you do that is you can bring that data inside of our pre-built, the BI360 pre-built data warehouse, and then that information is going to be available for reporting. And the way that we do that is we have a pre-built data warehouse, and this is not, and I know some people are probably thinking long line of IT people, there's a little bit of fear when they hear the word data warehouse, but this is much, much more than a data silo. So this is designed to be a self-service product, and it's designed for people to be able to use it quite easily. So inside of our data warehouse, not only will we bring all of your data in here, but we have advanced capabilities for things like consolidations. So if you have minority interests in your company, or you have intercompany transactions, our data warehouse will handle that for you. So we can set up minority interest rules, we can set up elimination rules, and all of that can be processed automatically through the data warehouse. We also have a full currency engine, so if you're operating in multiple currencies or reporting in different currencies or tax currencies, we can capture any number of currencies within our data warehouse. And one thing that's really cool and it's very important is our trees. So if you think about hierarchical trees, maybe you have projects, or you have products, or you have companies. Let's say you want to separate your companies out, and the example I'll give today will be you want to separate your companies out by location, by region, or maybe you want to separate your companies out by line of business. The data warehouse will let you build an unlimited number of trees, which are easy to manage inside of the data warehouse or inside of Excel. So I'll talk with you about that and show you trees today as well. So now great, all of your data is inside of the data warehouse, right, across your enterprise, and you'll notice that our report writing tool also integrates out of the box to a data warehouse. So essentially, I could just be a customer that just wants a live reporting tool off my ERP, and I could just run a report off of Dynamics NAV, or I could say I want to run the report off the data warehouse. And there's nothing preventing me from doing both. The only difference in this, the tool stays the same. The only thing that's different is I'm switching data sources, okay? And you're going to see me do that today quite easily. So the next step in this process is our budgeting tool. Our budgeting tool essentially is exactly the same as our reporting tool with one exception. Reporting, I'm just pulling data. But with budgeting, I'm going to pull the data, I'm going to add data, manipulate data, and then I need to store that data back. Remember, we're not storing anything inside of Excel. So I'm going to be storing that data back into our BI360 professional data warehouse. So all of my budget tables will reside in the data warehouse with unlimited number of versions of my budgets and my forecasts. And frankly, I can build any type of form inside of our tool. It doesn't have to be specific to budgeting and forecasting. We have sports teams that collect data on their athletes. We have health networks that collect data on their patients by building templates. And as soon as that data is entered in there, it's captured into the data warehouse. So both of these tools are available via Excel or via the web. So it's up to you how you want to deploy that to your users. And what's also important here too is if I run through a budget process and it goes through the workflow approval and it's in the data warehouse, well, guess what? It's immediately available for reporting. And I'm going to show you that in the first data warehouse report I show you today. We'll spend a little bit of time on dashboards. It's pretty simple to go through that. Just give you a couple of scenarios. We won't build anything, but just give you a couple of scenarios, give you an idea of how that works. This is a web-based only tool. You'll notice that it is also off the data warehouse or live off the Dynamics NAV out of the box. Okay? The last thing that I'm going to just talk about is I know a lot of you, you're all Microsoft customers, and I know that a lot of you are either using or considering using Power BI, and we get a lot of questions about this, so I like to address this right up front. Power BI, we don't look at Power BI as a competitor, we look at it as a complement to our solution. Power BI is a very advanced analytics tool, and it needs a data source. There's no better data source than a Microsoft, pre-built Microsoft SQL data warehouse. So that's the relationship there. In fact, everything in our product suite is built off of the Microsoft solution stack, so SQL, Office, etc. Okay. So let's get into the demo. I'm actually going to just close this down, and I am going to open up a report that's built off the NAV. So I'll cover a couple of basics for you. So first, you see I have a planning tab here, and I have a reporting tab here, and if I were going to go create a new blank, which I'll show you in a bit, I can select that button. It would give me a blank field within Excel for me to go and build a report. And remember, again, I said we don't lose any data inside of, or any of the functionality, feature and functionality inside of Excel. All we're really doing is presenting your data inside of Excel. So you'll notice here that I have Cronus USA, so that's one of the sample companies for Dynamics NAV. I don't run Dynamics NAV, but I have the database installed. So what I'm going to talk with you about right now is really, to start with, is the user experience. So you can see I'm a super user. I have the ability to design. I have a design tab here, and I have a run tab. That's the user experience. So just ignore this for now. We'll get to design in a minute. So as a user, I have the ability to go in and change the parameters or the filters that we have here. So here you can see department. So I could go, this is saying these are the 3 departments that I have access to, but I could easily go and add, or subtract different departments if I wanted to. I have some flexibility around that, or I could go and change to a different period in which I wanted to run that report. So a little bit of self-service from a user perspective. And by the way, these parameters were designed for me. So the person that built this report decided what parameters I have access to. So I make my changes and I simply go and run the report, and instantaneously this is going into Dynamics NAV and it's bringing back the results. And what I mean by that is if you post a transaction in NAV, I could see it instantaneously. Okay? And within these reports, I can also do drill back, and I'll show you that in just a second. So what you see here is a very clean report, very indicative of what you would see inside of Excel, right? So I have conditional formatting here with these traffic lights. I have graphs. I could put in in-cell graphs if I wanted to, but it's a very clean looking report, and I can drill down, I can scroll down, excuse me. If I wanted to in this report, I could add non-financial information like square footage or full-time employees. Maybe I wanted to see my revenue per full-time employee or per square footage. I can do that. I can also drill into these reports. So if I said, hey, I want to look at sales of raw materials here, you'll notice that I just right-click and it goes into the drill downs. I have 2 drill downs here. These drill downs are also definable by the person that built the report. So I can drill, as I said earlier, I can drill down. I can drill all the way back to the source document. So if I went into, if I was in expenses, I could drill back and see a vendor invoice, for example. So in this particular report, I can't do that, but that was just because the person that designed it didn't want me to. So if I go in here, if I drill down, you can see that I have all the information related to the ledger transactions, and then I can just pop right back into the report, okay? The other thing is, and I won't really show this to you, but I'll just talk about it, is I can simply switch here and say publish. And what publish is going to do is it's going to remove the entire left-hand side, our add-in product, and it's just going to make this document a static Excel document, which I could then share with somebody on the team. I could either share it in Excel or I could share it in a PDF it and email it to them. And that would be the manual way for me to share this information. We also have a tool which I won't show today, but I'll talk a little bit about it. It's called the Publisher tool that allows me to create reports and publish them out to different users in different formats at different frequencies, all automatically, okay? The last thing I'll tell you before I move into the design side of this is something that's really important, and this is going to be throughout all of our reports, throughout all of our budget templates. I'll tell you this. If you don't like the way this report looks, that's okay. You won't hurt my feelings. You know, I designed it, but it won't hurt my feelings. You can change these and build these reports however you want to do that, however you want them to look. So if I go into the design side, I'll just show you a little bit. So if I go into the design side of this and I said, I want to go in and I want to build this, and went into the ledger side of things, you'll notice that I have account here, right? So account's just sitting here in cell C9. So all I do is pull in account. As soon as I pull that in, I'll kind of highlight this. You'll see that this little filters on row 9. It's just going to say, okay, hey, you pulled account in. Well, what accounts do you want, right? I mean, do you want all of these but not this one or this one, or do you want to do a roll-up? I could create an unlimited number of roll-ups. I could say all my revenue accounts excluding, you know, services or whatever I want. I could have an unlimited number of those. So once I make that selection, my account's now in there. And then I need to bring in the account name. Well, where am I going to find that? The account name is just an attribute of account, so just pull account name in. And then I say, so I have all of the data here inside of NAV, out of the box. I mean, we install the product. It's going to look at all your modules. All this is going to be out of the box, nothing to configure. So then I could say, well, I'd like to look at my period functions. So you see period functions here, and I've got one. It's year to date. I'm actually going to close that layout editor down. And all I did was pull in year to date, and I spread it across these 3 columns here, right? And now all of these columns are now filtering year to date. So when I create one row here, like you see this where I did my filtering, all I have to do is copy that, come down, you know what, 6 rows later, paste it, and then all I'm going to do is go filter different accounts. Here I filter my revenue accounts. Here I'll filter my cost of goods. I'll come down again, and I'll keep filtering the accounts. I can filter the data and the period for this report in less than 10 minutes. Where the real work comes in is all the design stuff, all that, you know, formatting and formulation inside of Excel. So really you have all the capacity and all the flexibility to build things however you want. And I'll show you a little bit of that today. So I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to open up another report. And we're going to be changing gears here just a little bit, because now what you'll notice, the same tool, but I switched from reporting off a NAV live to reporting off my data warehouse. And I can have an unlimited number of data warehouses. So here you can see that I have new parameters in here, and it's pretty cool. So I could go through, and now you start to see some of that consolidation capability, right? I can say, hey, well, show me Canada and show me Singapore as well in here. And this report's going to give me a consolidated view of all of those companies, right? It's all bundled into one report. They're not separated out in columns, but I could do that if I wanted to, and I'll show you that in a bit. And then I could choose the period, and I could choose the budget scenario. And I'm going to run the report, and I'm going to talk a little bit about budget scenario. But first, I'm going to let this report run. So if I expand open scenario, you notice I have forecast in here as well. Well, if I were to change that to forecast, you see here in column I where I have budget, it's going to change that title to forecast, and it's going to bring back my forecast data. So I'm doing my actuals with a variance to my budgets by percentage, by dollar amount, whatever it is that I want to do. Well, if I change that to forecast, forecast numbers are going to come in here. And what this is assuming is that I've only got one budget and one forecast. Well, what if I had multiple? Well, if I had multiple budgets and forecasts, I would have budget version here, right? And then I'd be able to say, okay, budget, and then show me version number, 20, and it would bring in that data. So a lot of flexibility within the reporting side of things. So this report is very, again, another P&L, but it looks very different than the last one. I've got expansion groups, so I can expand or collapse that. I've actually even got them at the department level. I can still do all the drill downs. So if I want to drill down here, you can see that I've got drill downs, and notice that I've got multiple drill downs now. Before I had 2, now I've got 4, and I'm going to drill down into the ledger detail, and here you can see I can see all of the general ledger detail, including currency, and pop right back into the report. In this report, I also have in-cell graphs, and I'm filtering. Last one I was filtering year to date, but here I'm filtering actual month last year, actual year to date, current year, actual year to date last. A lot of different stuff. So again, it takes me less than 10 minutes to filter all of the data for this report. Okay, so what's different about the design side of this report is now it's not just my NAV modules, it's any piece of information that I have across my organization. So sure, I'm going to bring in my Dynamics NAV, general ledger, or, whatever, manufacturing, whatever it is that I want to bring in from Dynamics NAV, but I also have things like projects. What if I had an external project or external payroll system? My payroll data would be in here. You see I have Google Analytics. Maybe I want to create a sales report where I look at my revenue and how that's trending to people that come to visit my site or open documents or review product literature or whatever that might be. I can pull fields from every single one of these modules into a report. So it's not like I have to only build a general ledger report. I could say build a sales report, pull in some Google Analytics. So a lot of power to do that. But the design of the report is exactly the same. I open it up, you see account, I pull account in, you'd see description, I pull description in, and so on and so on. Okay? And I think as an example here, just to show you really quickly, you'll see there's a roll-up here. So roll-up level 1 for my revenue, but I could have 10 different types of roll-ups, right? I can have an unlimited number of roll-ups. So that is start with the data warehouse, and I'll show you a couple of more. Oops, sorry, I'm going to go into the narrative side of things. Some of you are probably doing board reports, and I'm going to move over to the news side. So what you'll notice here is I haven't run the report. There's no graphs populated. There's limited language populated here. Description isn't completed. It sees moderate as a default. You'll see moderate everywhere. The possibility or the profitability this month was moderate. Lots of drivers built into here. Numbers aren't populated, et cetera, et cetera. This is called a narrative report. So a lot of people probably take their numbers, go out into Word or PowerPoint and transpose those numbers, and that's how they deliver their management or board level reporting, a report book, or report pack, whatever you want to call it. But the problem with that, and it works fine, but the problem with that is what happens if I go and change the companies that I'm reporting on, or I change the scenario, or I change the period, or any other information? My results are going to change, right? So I have to go back into Word or PowerPoint and have to go and revise all of those. But here I don't have to do that because this narrative is going to be automatically generated based on the information that's returned from my query. I've decided what is, for example, moderate, poor, great, fantastic, you're getting a pink slip, whatever it is. I've decided that in advance. There's drivers built into this report. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over to the P&L variance in this, and you'll notice also that there's a lot of different tabs in here as well. So now you're getting a view of a P&L and other reports in a multi-tab environment. So I'm going to go ahead and run this report. This just brought back a ton of data, right? So this is a lot of information that was just returned. And guess what? You're looking, again, I'm going to shrink this down maybe a little bit so you can see it, a little bit more of it. But you're looking at another different type of P&L, right? I'm filtering different information. If I scroll over here to the right, you'll notice that I have actuals. This is the aggregated year-to-date totals for 2014 and 2015. I could put in as many years as I want. And hey, I've got an expansion group, so if I want to see that in detail, I can just expand it and see all the information by month, right? So really, it's all about the flexibility and how I want to design things. But here again, it's just another look at a P&L. So these would be the numbers that you would typically run and transpose out into Word or PowerPoint, but I don't have to do that, right? So if I go back into that news, right, and I go and look at that news, it's populated it for me, right? So I ran this on SUS, is the US company, right? So if you open this up, you'll see I ran it on the United States. I didn't run it on these other companies. So it says US, it populated the name, sees great improvement. So great was now populated based on that driver. Sees great improvement in September, brought back the period that I ran it for, and then it populated the rest of the report and it added language to it. Now it says the profitability this month was great, and every one of the drivers inside of this report has now been populated. You can build an unlimited number of these reports with an unlimited number of tabs. If I go into this report, you can see things like dashboards. So if you want to do KPI dashboards, or you want to, this is the data supporting those dashboards. You saw the P&L variance. I could put in a cash flow, balance sheet. I mean, you decide what you want to put into these things. But maybe I want to look at my sales, my top 10 sales transactions. I mean, I have many, many different examples for these types of reports. They're very intuitive and quite powerful. Okay? And this is all built off the data warehouse. So I'm going to talk a little bit about consolidations. There's probably some people are going to be interested in really interested and others won't be interested at all because they don't do any consolidations. That's okay. I'm going to show it anyway because it's kind of cool. It'll still show you some different ways in how we do things. So first, from an audit perspective, there's lots of different ways to do consolidations. So I won't make any specific recommendations here because everybody's going to be a little bit different. But what you're seeing here is a matching report. So inside of your ERP or your ERPs, you're going to identify those transactions by account, and some ERPs will have, if you've got, you're running Dynamics NAV, but you've got a lot of different ERPs from acquisitions and companies that you own. Some ERPs will actually flag those accounts or have a little flag on it. We don't care. We're going to identify it when it comes into our data warehouse. We're going to say this is an intercompany transaction. The rule is going to match those transactions, and it's going to come back and show something like this, right, where it says, here were the transactions. Hey, I'm out of balance. So I now have options to go back and fix this. And my adjustment would be option would be I'd go back into the ERP and make the adjustment. Then it's going to run back through the integration process, the rule, the intercompany process, the rule, and then it's going to come back and show that it's matched. The other way is you just build an adjustment form and make an adjustment, and it goes back into our data warehouse, very similar to a budget form. You make the adjustment and you move on. There's no right or wrong way. It just depends on the company and how you want to do it. Typically, if you're a company that owns lots of companies with lots of ERPs, you'll probably want to build an adjustment form. If you have a small number of companies, you probably just go back into NAV and make the adjustment and move on. So more on consolidations, I can just show you a couple of things. So here's a report that will be great for everybody. It's a net income report, but consolidating net income report. Well, what I've done in this, it's different, and never mind consolidations. If you've got entities or cost centers or departments or anything you want to put in columns, fantastic. You'll see that I put entity in a column, and I could go through and I could select or deselect my companies, and you can see the ones I have here. And I simply say run that report, and it's going to dynamically expand the report and include all of my companies that I've selected. Right? And this one just happens to have an elimination column, so I know if I have any problems with my intercompany elimination process, right? But again, just another look at a different type of report. You build it however you want, different look, different flavor. Okay? So that's a little bit on consolidations. Actually, I'll show you one more consolidation report here where I go into the report, and what's different here is now this one has a tree. So where before I had my companies in columns, now I have my companies in trees. So if I say I want to run this on Asia Pacific, it's now going to give me a consolidated total for Asia Pacific. That's consolidating these two companies. And then it's going to give me two separate tabs for the individual companies. So here's the consolidated view, and then here's the two entities. So there's Australia, there's Singapore with their individual numbers. But if I said, hey, just show me Australia, I want to see my Australia numbers, I don't need to go and build another report. Boom, there's Australia. So a lot of that capability within the product. So I'm going to try to build something quickly here, just because I know there's probably a lot of people that want to see it. So I'm going to build this in 5 minutes or less. You can see I can build this off Dynamics NAV, but I can also build it off the data warehouse. And I'm going to build it off the data warehouse. And the reason being is because the data warehouse does everything that I can do in NAV, but it does a couple of things that I can't do in NAV, such as the trees, right, and the stuff that's related to disparate data. So inside you could see what I did. I picked the data warehouse. If I picked NAV, it would have brought up all my NAV modules over here on the left-hand side. But I've got a blank field, and it's saying, hey, go out and let's design something. So I'm going to just do a little bit of formatting, right? And there's no particular order in which I have to do this, right? I can do it however I want to, and I will build you a trial balance. And now I'm just going to start pulling in my data. So you've already seen this before, right? So go into my general ledger, I'm going to pull in my account, and it's automatically going to say, cool, you brought in your account. How would you like to filter your accounts or do your grouping? Would you like to do your grouping across the row, down the column, or not at all? You can tell by my headers I'm going across the row. As soon as I selected that, it brings my account in. Everybody knows this, right? I can select what I want, but I'm going to select everything so that we have lots of data, and I say OK. And by the way, I can if I'm inside of account, I can select use ranges. If I add an account inside of Dynamics NAV, it'll automatically be added in my reporting unless I come back and tell it not to or deselect it. So inside of account, I have account description, and now I need to put in function range, period function. So I'm going to do year to date, I'm going to do last year to date, and I will show you that I can do a variance, standard formula inside of Excel. And by the way, if I want to change this to last year to date instead of last year to date or make anything in there that I want, it won't affect my formulation. And what I need to do is go back in here and pull up my amount. So I'll pull in my annual amount. I'll just drag, I'll drag that across. I'll write my formula. And I'll put in a total. So if I was doing a P&L, right, I would take this, my revenue accounts, I'd come down, paste it, select my cost of goods accounts, come down, paste it, et cetera, right? So total, and you'll notice I'm in the design mode. When I was in the run mode and I right-clicked, it went into drill down, but now I'm in design. So if I right-click here, it says, hey, what would you like to do? I can build these little hot buttons. I'm going to create some, and I'm going to just drag it across here. So I can build an unlimited number of those. So for all intents and purposes, I finished the report, but let's make it look good, right? It doesn't look like a report. So let's go and do all that stuff you like to do, standard Excel functionality. We'll make this bold and beautiful. Maybe change the white. Accountants love blue. We'll center the account so it looks better. I'll right justify this. Bold this whole row as well. Maybe add a little total box here, some dollars, and then I will put a comma here, right? So it looks more like a real report. So I distribute that report out to the person that requested the report. Then they say, thank you very much for the report, Mike. They go through and they select the period for which they want to run the report and run the report, and there's the trial balance, right? Okay, it's not rocket science to build a trial balance, right? But the point of me doing this for you was to show you, and these are sample numbers, so don't anybody panic. It's just sample data. But the point of me building this for you was just to show you how to build the report, right? So I distributed the report out, and the person that received the report said, thanks, Mike, this is a great report, but you gave me a consolidated report. It's got all of my companies, and I really wanted to have a view where I could see my companies by region or my companies by the product line. Can you make that? Can you build another report for me? I say, yeah, fantastic. I'll build another report for you, but I really won't. I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to modify this. I'm going to say I want to put an entity, and I will pull my layout editor up here so everybody can see this. So you notice it turns blue. I'm going to filter the entire sheet. I'm going to filter that sheet on entity. I name it whatever I want. Just keep it an entity. I could choose different styles. I'm going to choose the tree because you've seen it, and I want to show you how to do it, how to add it, how quickly you can add it, and I'll show a little bit more of the dynamics of it. I say next. I can filter out any companies that I wanted to, just like accounts, but I'll keep them all. And I'm going to say create sheet per value. That's going to give me those multiple sheets. And I say finish there. And the only other thing I need to do is pull in my parameter for entity so I get the name up there. So if I wasn't talking less than 20 seconds, I send it back out to that person. They've got a new parameter. They say, cool, now I can run this report at the regional level like you've seen before. There's my Asia Pacific, but I also have my trial balance or any other report. It's just a trial balance example for today, and you can see that I can run those entities. Well, I'd also like to look at it by line of business. So we do manufacturing, we do distribution. So show me my manufacturing companies. So here is the consolidated total for all my manufacturing companies, and then I've got individual totals for each one of the individual manufacturing companies. So a lot of power in the parameters here, okay? So that was my 5-minute or less report building, so I'm going to move on. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit. So I'm going to get out of Excel for a minute, and I am going to go into the web portal. So remember I said these are both available either via Excel or via the web. So what I have here essentially is I logged into Mike's portal, so I'm an end user, and the company has provided these folders for me that say, you know, here's my budget folders, my finance reports, my CRM reports, whatever it is. I've got some dashboards over here on the left-hand side. I'm in the carousel view, and I can flip through my different reports. Something different than Excel is Excel, if I look for an Excel file, I've got an Excel file name. Here, I can see actual snapshots of the reports, right? What kind of report do you want? I'm in a corporate one, but I'm in a corporate model here, but if I switched into a manufacturing model, you'd see manufacturing and production type reports, right? I can build any kind of report. And I can also change the view of how I look at these reports, right? I could go into a drill down, into a thumbnail if I wanted to. So I'm going to go back into my reports again and my carousel view. And you notice this report looks familiar. This is the first data warehouse report that I showed you. So I'm going to run that report. Now I can't build anything inside of the web, but from a user perspective, I can do all of the same things. So, and actually a little bit more. I can reference back to previous times when I ran this report. I can change all the parameters like you saw before. So here's my company, the period, scenario. Just like you saw before, I can expand this report so I can see it a little bit better. I can drill down. I won't actually drill down, but you can see that there's the drill down. I can do all of the same things, all from the web. And what's really cool too is I can actually download this into Excel, and it'll bring this document, this report in with all the format, auto formatting and formulation. Right? It'll be a static document because I can't change parameters or anything, but I can bring that in. Maybe I want to run my own calculations or scenarios or something that are specific to me. So just to show you, that's kind of how it works. And I can also scroll through my favorites while I'm in here. Go back to the library. And I can show you just all different kinds of reports, right? Lots and lots of things to show you. And it doesn't have to be related to anything related to just the finance side of it. One thing that I did earlier here, I'll come back to this in just a second, but one thing I did earlier here was I opened up another, I just like to do this because I think it's cool. I opened up another vertical. So Mike switched industries. I'm now an employee of a professional sport team. The one I was in before was corporate models. It's going to show you typical corporate type of stuff. This is a professional sports team model. So Solver has about 20 different vertical models. So now this assumes that I'm an employee for a professional sports team. So cool stuff. Like you see this interactive stadium map, and I say, okay, cool. Well, I want to go look at my concession stands or my clothing stands, and I want to look at the revenue specific to them according to my, let me see if I can expand this up. There we go, expand it up a little bit. I want to look at my concessions, like my lobby snack stand. Show me lobby snack stand. So I looked at the map, went directly to lobby snack stand. I'm interested in the beer sales. I want to know a little bit more about that. I expand on it so I can now see what makes up that 17,000. Right, so I'm looking at domestic craft beer versus imported beer, and I can just pop right back into that stadium view. The purpose for me showing this doesn't have to be a P&L. It could be anything that you dream up. And if I go back into this stadium scenario here, and it could be anything: healthcare, insurance, any industry you could think about. Here you have reports that are like ticket sales. So I've got ticket sales by my home games, my away games, and who's selling my tickets. Nothing to do with my ERP. It has something to do with my ticketing system, right, which we pulled into the data warehouse. But this gives you a really good idea that I can now combine my financial information with all the information across my enterprise, right? Okay, so just kind of giving you a view on that and just showing you some different things other than just the P&L. So get back out of that and go back into where I was before. And sorry for switching around so much, but now I'm going to show you, I'm going to transition into showing you budgeting. So I think we've covered enough on reporting. Everybody's got probably a pretty solid idea. So I'm going to go into budgeting here for about 10 minutes. Now, with budgeting, you remember I said that budgeting is exactly the same tool as reporting, except for I'm going to collect data. So everything you just saw from a design perspective, from a reporting perspective, just transition that all over into budgeting. Here are examples of the different types of budgets, but again, I can build them to look and feel however I want, right? Different types of budget examples, and I'll go into my other expense budget template. And this is available via Excel. It will do everything in Excel that you're going to see me doing here. I'm just trying to show more of the web portal since I showed the first half of today's session in Excel. I want to show you the web portal. So you notice this looks just like a report, right? I have, previous times I've run this report, but it's actually a budget template, and I have all the parameters. And why do I have parameters? And this is a very, very difficult example, I should say. It's for somebody who's got a lot of somebody who's got a lot of companies, or I have maybe a budget manager. I've got access to everything. This is probably not your average budget contributor, right? I have access to multiple companies, multiple departments, and I can change all these. Don't fear. We're trying to show you this from an extreme example, but you can edit these. So in a real scenario, somebody's going to have probably multiple departments. So forget about the rest of these. Let's just say it was department 300. I'd come in, make my contribution. I would save or submit that, come in and change to department 100 and do my contribution as well. If you as a company want to decide for your contributors In other words, they don't see any of these parameters. They're just going to get it for their department, their company. You don't want them to change any parameters. No problem. It just looks just like this. So it looks just like a report, right? But now I can come in here and I can contribute. So if I want to come in here and say, these examples are kind of funny, but I'm gonna upgrade us on our rent, right? We're moving into a new place, so I can just say 5,000. I can drag that across and say, hey, in April that rent's going to go up. It's 6,000. That's part of my contract negotiation. And okay, I've entered in my budget and save it. I'll come back later to review it or submit it. It's grayed out because we don't want people submitting our budgets, but submit it. It goes through the workflow process, right? So it could be that simple, and I could just move on. All that data is being stored to the data warehouse. Or I could say, you know what, we're a simple company, but not that simple. Let's make a little bit of change here. So I right-clicked, I drilled down. Now you'll see my current budget line, and you'll actually see my reference data. Reference data can be anything that you want it to be. In this scenario, it's last year's actuals. So I say, you know what, we're a pretty simple company. I'm going to zero out my reference data. I'm going to copy in last year's history, and you can see some seasonality. These are definable. I'm going to copy in last year's history. I'm going to apply that, and now my current reference data, my current budget data is exactly like my reference data. But I'm going to increase that by 8% and apply it, and hey, I'm done. Okay, cool, go on to the next thing. And you might be wondering why there's these boxes or borders around these cells. Well, what it's indicating is if I go in here to consulting and I right click, it's indicating there's line item detail in here. So very easy for me just to come in and add a line where I say, you know, right, and then just start going in and entering in numbers and whatever I want to do. And I can also enter in notes or comments into these fields as well. So all of this can be done either via the web or via Excel, right? Quite easy to do. And if you want to provide, and by the way, I'll say this again, if you don't like the way it looks, cool, change it. I mean, if you don't like borders and you want to make the cells a different shade of color for your line item detail, fine. You want to change the way this looks or add things, fantastic, right? And I can also add directions too. These are demonstration directions, or instructions, but these could be policies, procedures, step-by-step instructions of how to complete your budget. But frankly, it doesn't get much easier than this. Okay, and if I scroll over here, I can add in actual data if I want to, and you'll notice that it has my actuals all the way up to September, and the reason for that is because I have a parameter. I said, show me last actual period up to September, and that's why it only showed to September. The rest was a forecast. I can also add data from other budget templates. So this is from a payroll template. I want to see it, but I can't change any of this data, right? That's what, for our demonstration scenarios, blue means I can't change, right? I can't change any of my count information, and yellow means I can. And that's just to make it easy for people that are contributing to the budget. And I can also download the budget into Excel. I could also share this and everything else. So that's kind of an example of budgeting. And you know, we can go into lots and lots of different scenarios. I'll also tell you one other thing here before I leave, and you can kind of see that I've got personnel type budget templates. I could spend lots and lots of time on budget templates, but I think everyone gets it. But we also do assumptions. So an assumption template is like a driver template. I can build drivers inside of a template, or I can build an unlimited number of templates to drive other templates. I know everybody in Australia, this is very US based, but I know everybody has Medicare in Australia. So if I change this percentage for Medicare, it's going to affect every template that I've asked it to. So this happens to be a global driver, so it'll affect all the templates. But it could affect one template, 10 templates, could be a global driver, it's up to you. And generally speaking, you'd have one for HR, but here we put in other things just to show you can do it. So you've got benefits, you've got your asset, CapEx life, you've got project stuff for days in a year, travel stuff. I mean, but I could have done this all by individual templates as well. So lots of power to be able to drive things within the tool. So the last thing that I will show you is here is just quickly is just a sampling of a dashboard. This is a very basic dashboard. We've got further complex dashboards, but dashboards within our environment, our customer feedback is don't further complicate them. Just make them easy to work with and easy to build, and our customers really like this. This one's kind of a lot of the same information here. I might pop out and show you one in the sports team model, but very easy. You know, if this is off of NAV Live and I went in here and I went over my companies, it would give me real-time information from NAV. And I could drill down into these numbers as well. So if I'm drilling into corporate EMEA, it's now giving me, it's changing all the graphs associated with it and giving me additional information. And again, I can change parameters as well. So if I just quickly pop back into this other scenario here, where we're in the sports team model, you'll see that I've got some different looking dashboards that are specific to things like, in this case, broadcasting dashboard, right? Broadcasting revenue probably. And I probably should have popped this up so it's not running. I think I timed out when I left here. I was too long out before I came back into it, but there it goes. So again, this would be data that's not specific to ERP, right? Where the corporate model is more ERP related. So I can go and look at my different broadcasters and drill into that data and look at the metrics, and you notice that the viewers by game changed when I changed the different broadcasters, and so on and so on. So you guys kind of get an idea. These little squares here, we call these dashlets. So when you build a dashlet, you can save it to a library. So imagine if I said, I built one that said top 5 customers or top 10 customers, and I save that. Anytime I build a dashboard, all I have to do is drag it in and size it to however I want it to look in a dashboard, and it'll work right off the bat. Nothing else for me to do. The only thing I would want to do is maybe go in and change the color or something for that particular dashboard. But very easy for us to build these. And again, now you can see parameters where I'm filtering my broadcasters. It could be companies, could be really anything. So to wind this session up today, I've got 5 minutes. I am going to show you one last tool within our suite, and that is called our Composer tool. Composer is an ad hoc query tool, so I already built this query this morning, and it's very simple. You'll notice that this uses exactly the same integration as the formatted tool for NAV, and it uses exactly the same integration as the data warehouse. Well, what's different here is this is not formatted, it's just drag and drop, so I can go through and I can drag in things. So in this particular scenario, I just drug in a bunch of things, I refreshed it, but I will add a couple of things in here as well. I will add the vendor up here. I'm going to actually filter the vendors, and then I also want to do row totals because I don't have those now. Now you see I have the row totals by vendor. And I'm going to go in and filter the vendors that I have in here, and I want all of these, but not this one, or this one. And I say OK, and I'm going to refresh that. Now I've got a new group of vendors. I can query all of my data, right? And it's a really advanced ad hoc query tool, very easy to use. You can learn this tool in an hour and a half. But let me tell you what's really cool. And first, I should also tell you, I can save these too, right? So you can see if I open them up, I've got reports, and I've got tons and tons of reports in here across to everything, right? So you can still save these, and you can pass these queries on to people. But let me tell you what's really cool about it. One is I can export it out to Excel. It'll go out to Excel. If somebody asks me for some query where I don't have a report for, I can build the query, I can search it for them, I can send it to them in Excel, and when I send it to them in Excel, it's going to automatically populate all the formats and all the formulation, right? So that's cool. But what's really cool is that once I build this report, I say, you know what? I build this query, I say, you know what? I'd like to build a formatted report off of this for everyone's use moving forward. All I have to do is go in here and say export to the report designer. So where you saw me build the report earlier, it would automatically take all of my filtering, all of my parameters. This up here is really a parameter. It would take all of this information and bring it back into Excel and automatically do what you saw me do earlier when I was dragging in all of the different fields. Then all I would have to do is make that report look the way I want it to, right? Do all the formatting type of stuff. So very, very powerful query tool that goes across all the modules and is available also with the data warehouse. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed the session and they've got a lot out of the session today, and that concludes my part, and I will turn it back to the folks at Dialogue.
Thanks, Mike, for a great presentation. If you're interested in finding out more, please contact your relevant account manager. Details of the Dialogue account manager are on the screen. Can you show that, Mike, please? And yeah, again, thank you all for joining us on today's webinar. If you have any questions, please post them now and we will email you the response. Also, we will send you the link for the webinar recording. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.